So Sony just held their state of play for the E3 not E3 week, and while 7 Remake Part 3 was not there, or Final Fantasy IX Remake, or even Resident Evil 9 Remake, we still got a few standouts that I think are super cool in the form of Final Fantasy Tactics The Ivalice Chronicles, which is a really cool quasi-remake remaster, and a brand new Marvel fighting game, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. We're going to break down those two games in this video in particular, so if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button. It really does help out the channel a ton, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. So I did actually record my reaction to this entire showcase. I'm going to try and get that video edited down into like a supercut, focusing on the things that stood out to me. And I'll try to get that video out tomorrow, so you'll see my reactions to Final Fantasy Tactics, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, the blue balls moment I had with Ghost of Yotei, where they gave it to me and then they took it away immediately and said, you gotta wait till July. It sucked. It's gonna all be in there. But for the purpose of this video, we're gonna focus on that new Marvel fighting game and Final Fantasy Tactics, starting off with Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. It's an interesting name. It's a little confusing, might be kind of hard to market, but it's interesting. It gets the people going, it's different, so maybe it'll catch on. But this is a really interesting collaboration between PlayStation Studios, Arc System Works, and Marvel Games to create a brand new tag-based fighter that is 4v4. Yes, you heard me right, 4v4, which is insane. And when this was first revealed, I'm like, oh my god, how do you do a 4v4 fighting game that is not super overwhelming and complicated? And seemingly Arc System Works has found a way to make it work. And as I was watching this reveal trailer, the one thing I could think of was Maximilian dude must be losing his mind right now. Like, he's completely dumbfounded. So what's really cool is that this is going to be a tag-based fighting game that is easily accessible without having the gameplay mechanics being dumbed down to make it easily accessible. So they're still going to have standard fighting game inputs that people who grew up playing fighting games are familiar with, but there will also be control schemes that make it a little easier to do some of the cooler stuff, so anyone can pick up the game and play. On top of that, you might think 4v4, I have to learn how to play 4 different characters. That's not the case. So the way the combat is going to work is that you have your team of 4, and you can use all 4 characters if you want. You tag in, you tag out, or you focus on learning how to use one character, and then the other 3 people are assists. They jump in, they do an attack, they leave. So that's a really cool way to balance a 4v4 fighting game, make it accessible without being overwhelming. So you kind of have 2 really nice options to figure out how to play this game. And that is really, again, the right way to evolve these games, because it's like, how do you get further from Marvel vs. Capcom? How do you build upon 2v2 or 3v3? And the way that Arc is approaching this seems to be the right way to do it. And clearly the people involved in this project are super passionate about making this a really cool looking, fun fighting game to play. Now, as of right now, they've only announced a few characters, and for them, they said they wanted to choose the characters that they felt were the faces of Marvel. So that includes Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Doom, Storm, Miss Marvel, Star-Lord, and Ghost Rider, the Robbie Reyes variant in particular. But they also said they do plan on adding characters who have never been in a Marvel fighting game before, which is pretty cool. Now, as for the style of this game, the visual art style, it looks beautiful. And what's interesting is in the documentary they had for this game, they said initially Arc drew these characters in the way that most people remember them as, like the American iterations, the comic book forms of them. They took it to Marvel Games, and Marvel Games were like, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you guys to put your own unique spin on these characters. So Iron Man has this really cool Japanese mech suit. Cap's got this really awesome jacket and pants combination. Star-Lord's got this cool hairstyle. Ghost Rider, Storm, everyone looks cool. They have that unique Japanese Arc System Works spin on their design, but you can still tell who they are. It's a really cool, unique, beautiful art style that this game is going to have. And I'm glad they went with that art style. Yeah, we could have gotten something like a Marvel vs. Capcom, or, you know, an art style that we're all super familiar with, but for Arc to put their stamp on it and make these characters really stand out and look flashy, I think was definitely the right move. And I love that Marvel Games was so open-minded enough to be like, no, we want you guys to put your own stamp on this. We approached you guys in this partnership for a reason. Now, even though this is Arc developing the game, they do make mention that they want this to feel like a brand new, unique fighting game experience that doesn't feel like any other fighting game. So it's probably not going to feel like a Guilty Gear, which I enjoy Guilty Gear. It is a little heavy at times, a little weird to play, but this, seemingly from the footage we're seeing, is really going to be different. Super fast paced. There's like wall crush combos. Honestly, watching it, it made me feel like I was watching a Marvel vs. Capcom game, but like on steroids. It's insane. And I get those Marvel vs. Capcom vibes when I look at the stages. They are straight up like something you'd see in an MVC game. It's kind of weird how closely similar it looks to that. And this game just looks like it's going to be absolutely insane. Now, the one downside to this game being a thing is that it probably means we won't get a proper Marvel vs. Capcom anytime soon, or even at all. It's just making me think that maybe Marvel Games wants to move on from that relationship, so they ended up partnering with Sony and Arc System Works. And truthfully, there's not really a better team out there to do a Marvel game other than Arc System Works. They really are like some of the most deserving devs out there to craft an incredibly cool fighting game like this and bring it to life and make sure that it looks and feels and plays very unique. So I cannot wait to see more, and I really cannot wait to see like actual professional FGC people get their hands on this game and do some insane, unique stuff, crazy character combinations. There's going to be people that only use one character and fight with everyone else as assists, and then there's going to be people that, you know, take full advantage of having 4 different characters, and they're going to be an absolute menace. So I'm hoping this shows up at EVO this year, since EVO is a Sony event and this is a Sony game. Maybe they have it there as a preview thing. Maybe there's like an exhibition tournament or like some sort of character reveal. There's a lot they can do with this game, and as far as roster goes, I'm hoping to see more X-Men characters, Cyclops, Wolverine, hopefully they'll be in there. I'm hoping to see people like Venom, especially with this art style. I really want to see what their take would be on a character like Venom, or Cyclops, or Wolverine. Throw a Daredevil in there. This is just super, super cool. As someone who really loves fighting games, I love these types of tag versus games. It's sad to know it's not Marvel vs. Capcom, but it's also just super cool and exciting to see this new game, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. Crazy name, but hey, it gets the attention, and visually it is a stunner. So this is something super, super exciting. And the approach they're taking to make sure that people who are experienced with fighting games can have a good time, but also people who just want to pick up and play and do cool stuff, they can also enjoy it too. Now, moving on to Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. Now, I label this as kind of a quasi-remake. It's not the full-on remake that we all were kind of assuming it would be. It's a bit of a remaster, it's a bit of a remake, but it's a really cool package. And what's nice is that it's going to be multi-platform on day one. PS5, PS4, Nintendo Switch 1 and 2, Xbox Series X, S, and PC, Steam. Now, the reason why I call it a quasi-remake remaster is because they're going to have 2 different versions of Tactics in this package. The original Tactics that everyone grew up playing on the PlayStation, that's there, it's intact, and it will have some quality of life stuff added like auto-saving, which is super cool. But then there's the new enhanced version of Tactics, which is going to feature a ton of new upgrades. Starting off first with a brand new user interface. So the game's UI has been completely overhauled, and they wanted to make it simpler to look at, but also much easier to approach, and just make it from a gameplay standpoint much more intuitive. So getting to all of your characters, seeing their stats, turn orders, that's going to be much easier in this enhanced edition. One of the biggest things you notice, the enhanced visuals. So everything's been reworked, all of the graphics and the stages have been cleaned up, and that pixel art is just so beautiful. I really, really love this art style. Seeing the characters without noses is a little weird, but it just works. You get used to it. Up next, we have one of the biggest changes to the enhanced version, and that is voice acting. Now, you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce some of the character names, so you'll have to correct me in the comments down below. But everyone will now have a voice. Joe Pitts will be voicing Ramza. Greg Lowe will be voicing, is it Delita? Hannah Melbourne as Agrius. Timothy Watson as Sidolphus. I got that one. Harry McIntyre as Mustadio. And then the next voice, which I recognized immediately, none other than Mr. Ben Starr. And I think it's pronounced Dystarg. Please do not kill me. These are some strange names. We will never escape Ben Starr, and I love it. The guy is so good. I'm super happy that he's finding all of these roles. He's really good, and he's been able to really show his range playing as Clive, but also Verso and Claire Obscure, and now in Final Fantasy Tactics. Now here's the really cool part. We all know in the original Tactics, Cloud and Aerith were both in that game. Cloud, from what I hear, wasn't very good. He did have one good move, Cherry Blossom, which did show up in the Dissidia games, which is pretty interesting. But since they're in the game, they're gonna need voices, right? Well, Cody Christian and Brianna White, who are the voices of Cloud and Aerith in the 7 Remake trilogy, will be voicing the characters in Tactics Enhanced, which is super cool. And that may explain why Cody Christian was in the booth a couple of weeks ago. May not have just been for 7 Remake Part 3, but he may have been recording dialogue for this game for all we know. Especially if it's just a cameo, he's probably only going to have a few lines of dialogue and then some battle sounds, so it may have been like a day or two's worth of work. We don't really know, but it's super cool to see the two of them reprise their roles as these beloved characters, but in Tactics. And it's going to be interesting to hear these versions of the characters in this game with different voice directions. So that's one thing to look out for. They've also added a tactical view that is supposed to make it easier to get the lay of the land and also plan your actions and look at your characters. You're going to be able to change your battle speed to get through them faster, or if you want to experiment with different team combinations, and they're also adding new difficulty levels. Now, I don't know if there will be physical editions of this game on the Square Enix blog. They do say that the special collector's box will be available to buy with the game, but it's not packaged inside, but it will be shipped together. So the wording is a little weird, but I'm assuming that means, yeah, they will have physical editions, although we might need more clarification on that. But either way, this is super cool. Like, the state of play itself may not have been for everyone, but there was a few things that really jumped out to me. Tactics coming back, that new Marvel fighting game is super exciting. It's like dopamine straight into my veins. But specifically speaking on Tactics, this is really cool to see this game come back because it is that traditional old school tactical turn-based combat, which so many people have been craving. And the funny thing is, I see this comment all the time. People will say that Square Enix no longer makes turn-based games and they turn their back on the turn-based community. That's not true. Square Enix still makes turn-based games, but what those people are saying is that they don't want those games. They want Final Fantasy to return to being turn-based, and you're kind of getting that. You're getting Tactics, which has the old school turn-based commands. There's FF9 Remake, which again is rumored to keep its original combat system intact. So to see that kind of be like a renaissance for games and to see it popularized again, especially with something like Claire Obscure, which is an incredibly cool reactive turn-based combat system, it shows that, yeah, there's still a demand out there for these types of games. And with Tactics in particular being the original version, but also including that enhanced edition, it's really, again, Hannah Montana, the best of both worlds, because you can play either version. Maybe you're a purist. You want the original. Maybe you want the enhanced edition with all of the voice acting. That's there too. So it's really cool to see Square put that package together, and I think this is going to be a game that does very, very well. Now, the elephant in the frickin' room. No FF7 Remake Part 3, no FF9 Remake, no Resident Evil 9, no Onimusha. What does that say to me as I lose my voice? That says to me that Jeff got all of the good stuff for Summer Game Fest. And if we see any of those things, I think that's when we're going to see them during Jeff's event on Friday. Jeff just seems to get scoop after scoop year after year. He's got a lot of connections, and I'm sure if Square Enix had anything else related to Final Fantasy, he probably scooped it up. And I'm especially kind of surprised Resident Evil wasn't here. Normally it's associated with Sony in their State of Play events, but it was nowhere to be found. And we did briefly get Ghost of Yotei, a cool teaser. I was locked in, and then they blue-balled me and said, oh yeah, you're gonna have to wait until July for a full deep dive state of play. So updates are coming for me for Ghost of Yotei, but I gotta wait until July, unfortunately. But with that being said, that is the video. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think so far of Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles? Is it kind of what you thought it was going to be? Do you like the fact that they're including the original game as well as the enhanced? And what are your thoughts on Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls? Are you as hyped as I am? With that being said, I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.